Hey guys, Kev here, and I wanted to do another Lefty Knife Talk video. I think I'm just going to go ahead and call it Lefty Knife Talk. I got my seltzer here, LaCroix, Curate, Peanut Fraise, pretty good, pineapple, strawberry. All right, so after getting a couple comments and suggestions about talking about left-handed use of different types of locks and opening mechanisms and that kind of thing, I have laid out, which you can't see here, but I'll hold each of them up and explain. I have a bunch of different types of knives in terms of how they function, how they lock, how you operate them, how you close them, and they all kind of have an effect towards a lefty and how that works. So I think it's fun to kind of go through that and explain. For the lefties out there, you'll kind of see where I'm coming from. You may have a different experience with knives. That's obviously possible. But, you know, it might give you an idea. If you're looking at a certain type of knife, it might help you decide. And righties out there, this will give you a perspective on how we see right-handed knives. It's not just, can you reverse the clip? And then if you can, great. It's now a universal knife. That's not always the case. Opening, closing a knife is really different for a lefty in a lot of cases. So I wanted to go over each of them. And I think I'll start with automatics just to get them out of the way. Because they're, I don't know, I'm more into manual knives, so I just kind of wanted to throw these out there. First up, I have the ProTech Newport. This is the lefty variation of the ProTech Newport. So this is set up for a lefty, so the button is right here. It's easy to just deploy the knife, push back down, and close. So this is very straightforward. Then I have the, this is the giveaway knife for my 1,000 follower Instagram and 100 sub YouTube giveaway. This is the Boker Desert Warrior Blade HQ exclusive. I'm sure you've seen it before, but this is a right-handed automatic. I took it out because I don't have any other right-handed automatics currently. So for a lefty, this is a little different because the button is over here now. So when I go to deploy this, I have to use my index finger and kind of wrap around the handle to deploy it. And once it's deployed, it's pretty much the same as anything. You know, you have the clip here, which actually to me is more comfortable than having it over here, because then it's in your palm and it's kind of a hot spot. So it's better in this case. And then to close, I have to do the same thing and pinch the grip and then squeeze the button down and then use my other hand to close. This has a stronger spring actually. But that's kind of how a right-handed automatic works for a lefty. It's not terrible, but it's definitely not as intuitive. It's not as easy for me to just hit the button with my thumb, you know, and open and close. It's a little bit more maneuvering and that kind of thing. So that is your right-handed automatic. Now, this could turn into a long video, so I do apologize if, you know, you're looking for something short, but I got a lot of different things here, and I may go off on tangents, so I apologize in advance. The last automatic I have is my Microtech Ultratech Bounty Hunter. I recently unboxed this along with the UTX-85 version. I went ahead and actually traded my UTX-85 for another knife on the table, so I'll explain when I get there. But this OTF has a switch, and you push forward and you pull back. It is that straightforward. This is universal because you can flip the clip on this one, and it functions exactly the same way. There's no bias one way or the other with this one. So that's an OTF. Okay, so now we're going to get into the manuals. And I'd like to start with the most obvious, which would be a lefty frame lock. So I have the Sharp by Design Micro Evo Typhoon here. I just picked this up. This is the knife I traded my UTX 85 for, and it is Lefty, and it is a bolster lock, frame lock. So it's nice that it's a bolster lock on such a small knife, because you don't have to worry about, you know, putting pressure on the lock bar down here, because you're going to be putting your fingers all over this thing that it's so small, you know. So, you know, it's pretty much straightforward. You just grip it and, you know, pull the flipper tab, and you're good to go. And then closing the knife, disengaging the knife, you push with your thumb out. So this is how a righty would obviously handle a right-handed frame lock. So it's just the opposite. But yeah, I just wanted to show that because I did have a lefty. So there you go. That's the only left-handed knife left on the table. So we got those two out of the way, being the Newport and the Micro Evo. So here is an option. This is also close to being basically left-handed. It's ambidextrous. This is a Asher Knife Co. Nomad. I am a big fan of Asher Knife Co. The guy who runs it, Justin, is a really cool dude. He's a knife enthusiast just like all of us. And he wanted to, you know, have a line of knives for people who don't want to spend hundreds of dollars. He's trying to keep everything under $100 and give you the best bang for your buck. So you get S35VN, you get G10, and you get a deep carry clip here. And this was, I believe, $80 new. And this has ball bearings, so it's very smooth. Honestly, this bar lock, axis lock, is probably better than the ones on my Benchmades. So it's very good. It's very intuitive. But as a lefty, it's exactly the same as it would be for a righty. You just pull the bar back, and it drops. So, and you have thumb studs there, no flipper. But, so that functions perfectly for a lefty. Okay, so then we have the right-handed frame lock. This is the Chavez 229 Ultramar Redención, I guess. This has black G10 on the show scale and titanium, and it is thumb studs. So this is a right-handed frame lock with thumb studs. Now, this one is interesting because, excuse me, as a lefty, you really have to worry about this lock bar, because what happens is right here, when I go to deploy with the thumb stud, my thumb is resting slightly on that lock bar, and I have to pay very close attention not to push down in that area, because then I can't get it out properly. See how it just kind of like came out a little bit? But if I don't put any pressure on it and I focus just on the thumb stud, it shoots right out. And it's obviously something you learn over time to get used to. And then for the Spidey flick on this, or middle finger flick, you also have to be careful, because your thumb wants to rest in this area while you're gripping down here to get your middle finger on the thumb stud. So you have to be really careful to slide your thumb over and then get your middle finger in there and flip it out. So it's a little bit of a process. You know, you gotta kind of you know, fumble around a little bit. There's a lot of times where I go to deploy it and it doesn't, and I'm like, ah, crap, and I gotta move my thumb, and then I can flick it. So it really is not ideal for me. I really don't like this setup, but I overlook a lot of things on this knife. I mean, there's a skull clip. It's G10. I'm not a big fan of G10. There's just a lot of things that I don't like about sharp corners, but I just love this design so much that it doesn't matter to me, and I overlook it. So that is your right-handed frame lock with thumb studs. Now, I also have, I'm going to put these aside so I don't show the same one again. I have a right-handed frame lock with a flipper. So this is the Off-Grid Knives Scorpion, and this has a flipper. So same thing here. I have to worry about the lock bar, but then I'm just using my index finger to flip it. So in my case at least, it's more natural for me to kind of pinch the knife back here behind the frame lock and then go to the flipper and engage it. I don't ever have issues with lock bar pressure. I never put my thumb here. See, I can't open it right now because I have pressure there, but that's never where my thumb instinctively goes. It always goes back here. So if I had to choose between a frame lock flipper and a frame lock with thumb studs that is right-handed, I almost would always choose the flipper, unless it's a design or something like the Chavez that I just really love and want. So I always choose the flipper if I have that option. I actually am in the middle of the review process on this knife. I absolutely love this thing. It is a monster at 4 inches on the blade, but it just feels so comfortable. It's so fidgety. It has such great action. It makes this really cool cracking sound when it opens. It's just a sweet knife. But that is the frame lock with a flipper. Then I also have a right-handed frame lock. This is the Aloni Goat version 2. I unboxed this just the other day. So this is a bolster lock with a flipper. So it's a little bit different than the frame lock here because the lock bar access is only right here. You see how it goes from here to here, and then this inlay covers the rest. On this one, you can see the frame lock goes all the way down, and then here's the relief cut down here. So in this case, you can see the relief cut, but it's hidden under that inlay, and you can't put any pressure on this area. So what happens with this one is I can put pressure down here, and that covers up, and I can, okay, well I can there. But you have more place to put your finger to cause issues with the frame lock as a lefty. As a righty, you almost don't even worry about the frame lock. You kind of just wrap your hand around the clip, which I have this reversed right now, but if you look at it in this case, you kind of instinctively put your hands where the clip is, and you don't have issues with the frame lock. But as a lefty, you don't have that clip there, so your fingers are always like right in this area. And on a righty, you put your thumb up in this area, and I tend to put my thumbs where the frame lock is. Now again, with flippers, it's not so bad, but I really love a bolster lock because I never worry about having that lock bar pressure issue. I can easily just put my finger down here under it or around it, and I never have issues with that. By the way, I'm absolutely loving this knife right now. But that is the bolster lock. And then I want to get into the button lock, and then I have one more. So this is the ProTech Malibu. This is the reverse Tonto in the blue configuration. I like to call it the Malibu. This is an absolutely gorgeous knife. This is probably my favorite knife that I have gotten this year. I will be doing a 2020 best knives video, but I have some things coming in still that I loaned out that I want to get back in to show you in that video. So I might just do it without them and mention them, or I'm going to wait and do it. I don't think it really matters if I do a 2020 video in 2021. You know, we'll see how it works out. But anyway, this is a flipper with a button lock, and it is right-handed. So as a righty, it's very simple. You just, deploy the flipper, and then you use your thumb, push in the button lock, and it drops close. Very simple, right? As a lefty, the button lock, again, like the automatic, is a little bit different, and it's a little awkward. So flipper is the same way. You don't have any lock bar to worry about, so that's not an issue. And then you have to use your index finger, at least I do. I guess you could use a middle finger, but you use your index finger to push the button towards you and let it drop. And to be 100% honest with you about the Malibu, this is the knife that broke me in terms of carrying knives that are right hand only. I used to never do that until about 3 months ago when I got a Malibu. Now it's just such a good design, such a good knife that I couldn't say no, and that kind of broke me. And then I've gotten a lot of right-handed knives at this point. But what I was saying was, I honestly think this knife functions better for a lefty than it does for a righty. Now, obviously the clip, if that could be reversed, that'd be fantastic. But I'm talking about the actual function of the knife. So the flipper, I would say, is the same either way. But the button lock, having it on this side with your index finger actually gives you more leverage. So when you push that, it pushes all the way in. You never have issues, and it drops. See that? Sometimes when I do it right-handed, I don't get enough pressure on it. Maybe it's because my thumb is fat, but it won't always just drop right away. It's kind of weird like that. Now, of course, it's working every time, but I just find it more fidgety left-handed, and I think I can do it faster. Like, I can play with it a little faster than I can right-handed, but that could be because I'm left-handed and I'm more dexterous that way. It's so much fun either way, but I kind of like it being set up for a righty this way. So yeah, that is the Malibu. Hands down, one of the best knives that I've ever owned. I can recommend this to anyone. Lefty, righty, ambi, whatever you are. Malibu is definitely for you. Okay, the last one is the liner lock. And I have two examples. I have a liner lock that is thumb stud, and I have a liner lock that has the hole for deployment. I didn't have a flipper. I might, but I didn't think about it. So actually I do. Sorry. I have a flipper right here. We'll call this a liner lock. It's a, this is the Ferrum Forge Wee Gent. And it is a flipper, and it has a, I'll call it a liner lock, but I think it's technically a frame lock with an inlay over it. Not sure what you would call that, but it acts as a liner lock anyway. So the reason why I differentiate the frame lock in this case and just call it a liner lock is because you have full scales on either side. You don't have a lock anywhere that you could put pressure on and cause issues with deployment or closing. So that's in a sense, that's why it's a liner lock. That's kind of a stupid definition, but whatever. So obviously for the flipper, I have no worries. You know, this knife is small, but it's not a problem because there's no pressure issue here. I can just go ahead and flick it. By the way, this is one of my favorite knives ever, is the Gent. I have another one coming, and then I was going to do a review on this and show them both off. But anyway, so opening, no problem. And then disengaging for a lefty is really not a big deal. You just slide this over and then go ahead and close it. For a righty, you get to do the thumb and then the drop. But I'm so used to it at this point, left-handed, that I prefer to just slide it over, pull it down with my finger, and then shake it shut. Now, for thumb studs, I have the Quiet Carry Waypoint here. And for deployment, same thing. Flick it open, and I have nothing to worry about. So if this was a frame lock, being so thin, I would have all types of trouble trying to not put pressure on the frame lock. But because it's a liner lock, this actually is a liner made out of LC200N. This is a completely rust-proof knife with titanium handles, Van X blade, LC200N, which is also rust-proof, liners, and then marine-grade titanium hardware. And then for this, you just slide the lock over just like the Gent I showed you. And then you can push it down, use your finger, and it doesn't drop. So this one's more of a slow roll, open, close. Now, one thing with this is the cutout. for the thumb stud, the access there. There are times where as a lefty, I slip over it because there's not much room in here. On the right side, you have a little room behind the thumb stud to slide your finger in. But as a lefty, you don't. Now, because of that, I can spidey flick this very easily, and I prefer to open it that way, so it doesn't bother me at all. But that's a liner lock with thumb studs. This is perfectly fine. Liner locks are probably one of my favorite types of locking mechanisms because they don't have that pressure issue anywhere on the knife. And the last one is the Giant Mouse Ace Grand. And this has a hole for deployment, which is very fidgety. And then it has a liner lock. And again, it just makes it so easy to manipulate lefty or righty. You just slide the lock over and let the blade start falling. You got to control it and then get your fingers out of the way and then let it close. As a lefty, as a righty, you just push it over and get out of there, right? I love this knife because of all the deployment methods. You know, I can middle finger flick it. I can thumb flick it. I could shake it out. I don't know. It's just so much fun. The detent's really light. I'm actually going to send this off to BJ Hill, Hilltop Knives and Gear. I'm going to send this off to him today, and he's going to do some work on it. We're going to try to strengthen that detent a little bit. I think he might bronze out the hardware on it. And I don't know. He might do something to the blade, and we might work on that early lockup because the lockup is super early on this. It is breaking in now, so it's a little better. It doesn't have lockup issues. It just is a little bit early for my liking. But anyway, so that was the last one. So we had automatic, we had OTF, we had thumb stud frame lock, flipper frame lock, bolster lock flipper, button lock flipper, ambi axis style lock, and then we had the liner lock in the 3 configurations. There are plenty of other options probably that I'm not looking at here, such as the shark lock. There's the recoil lock from CJRB. Again, those are very much like the axis lock where they are ambidextrous completely. And those are great options. It's just that I find that the number one option is the right-handed frame lock because all of the awesome like cool designs that people come out with, makers come out with into production knives, they usually end up being in a righty frame lock or some kind of a liner lock. That's just kind of the case. You don't see a lot of button locks come out like that. Like this one is from ProTech. They have the Malibu and the Mordax. You have the Spartan Payless. Those are all like in-house designs. You just don't see a lot of designer button locks. But yeah, so that's all of them here, and back to the Lefty frame lock here, which is fantastic. It's just, honestly, as a lefty, it's a little bit, it's almost a little awkward for me because I'm not used to it. I'm so used to right-handed knives that this feels weird, but this is really nice. It's a little tiny of a knife, but the lock is really fun. So anyway, that's all the different mechanisms and opening styles that I wanted to go over. I want to know what you guys think. Please, in the comments, let me know what your favorite opening mechanism is, how you close your knives, because I've seen lefties send me the weirdest videos. Like this one guy I talked to, he closes his knives with his middle finger. So he takes, or index finger, he wraps his hand like this, and then he pushes the bar over with his index finger. I'm going to slam the knife down on my hand, so I'm going to be careful. But he pushes it over like this with his index finger, and then he starts to close it with his thumb, and then he gets his hand out of there and shakes it closed. That is the strangest thing I've ever seen. I've also seen people do like a reach around with the thumb where they like, they go somehow get, I don't know how they do it. It's crazy to me. I think this is normal, where I just use my thumb and close it. And then right-handed, you know, same thing, thumb. But let me know if you have a weird way of opening and closing knives. Maybe because you're left-handed and everything's righty, you had to learn a different way to open and close knives, that's possible. I just want to hear your thoughts on it. I'd love to get some other topics for this. I know this is a long, rambly video, and half of you are probably gone, but if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. I got plenty more content coming in 2021. I want to wish everybody a belated Merry Christmas. I hope your holidays were as fun as mine were. I hope you got to spend time with family. I hope you got to be face-to-face with family, even if it was on FaceTime. I just wish everybody the best. I love this community. I hope you guys have a fantastic day. Stay sharp.